Thank the chairman. I now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Jasmine Crockett.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I first just want to begin with a news alert. Guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present, because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, you know, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. As he shattered that, he said something about the fact that this should not be about left versus right. It should be about right versus wrong.
Welcome back, Patriots, to another episode of Conservative Chronicle. If you're tired of the radical left hypocrisy, if you love the Constitution, and if you believe in God-given liberties, you're in the right place. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, because they will try to silence us. Today, we're diving into a recent House Judiciary Subcommittee hearing where Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat from Texas, decided to use her time for what I can only describe as a tirade of victimhood, race baiting, and anti-American rhetoric. She wasn't interested in lawmaking. She was interested in showboating.
And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric, and it is because of the selective enforcement of things. And so when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting Attorney General go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information, and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'm gonna say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook, because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him, because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman, that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me, and that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
Let's start with her sarcastic news flash. She claims Joe Biden's not the president anymore. Well, Jasmine, that might come as a surprise to the American people paying $4 a gallon, watching their retirement accounts dwindle, and seeing our border turn into a war zone. Joe Biden is the president, and the damage he's done is very real, very current, and very relevant. So no, we're not living in the past. We're holding this administration accountable for its failures on crime, the economy, foreign policy, and immigration. It's not nostalgia. It's duty. Crockett says Congress is a courtroom, and lawmakers shouldn't act like litigators. Well, someone should tell her that oversight is a core function of Congress. When the executive branch or its agencies abuse power, it is our job to investigate, to question, and to hold people accountable. That's not partisan. It's constitutional. She keeps repeating that this isn't about left versus right, but about right versus wrong. Great. Let's talk about right and wrong. It's wrong to weaponize federal agencies to go after political enemies. It's wrong to ignore violent crime in our cities while attacking peaceful parents at school board meetings. And it's definitely wrong to celebrate protests that target private citizens just because you don't like them. She and the chairman agree that threats against lawmakers are up. Fair enough, we condemn all threats of violence, period. But what she fails to mention is that the majority of politically motivated violence and intimidation in the last few years has come from the left, whether it's Antifa torching cities or pro-Hamas protesters shutting down airports and attacking Jewish students on campus. You can't talk about threats and then ignore where they're coming from. Then she takes a cheap shot at Fox News, calling it faux news. You know why they hate Fox? Because it challenges their narrative. Because it gives a platform to voices they can't control. They call anything they disagree with fake news, while CNN and MSNBC run cover for the administration daily. Calling a news network fake because it doesn't align with your views is straight-up authoritarian thinking. Now here's where she really unravels. She goes on a bizarre rant about Elon Musk, calls him a crook, says he's operating above the law. Why? Because he's successful? Because he dares to speak out against the regime? Because he bought Twitter and let conservatives have a voice again? I've got news for you. Congresswoman's success isn't a crime. Innovation isn't corruption. And if you think the DOJ should threaten people just because you don't like their politics, then you are the problem, not Elon. She brags that people protested Musk on her birthday. What does that have to do with public service? This wasn't civil rights marching. This was targeted intimidation against a private citizen. And she advised protesters to talk to lawyers? That's called lawyering up before you do something shady, not civic engagement. Crockett claims that crimes aren't being investigated because she's black or a woman. That's an inflammatory claim with zero evidence. Law enforcement is strained because liberal policies have gutted police budgets, demoralized officers, and let criminals walk free. And here's the thing, law enforcement should treat everyone fairly. But hiring or investigating based on skin color or gender, that's not equality. That's woke discrimination. She ends with a story about how she got her job as a public defender by saying, because I'm black. Patriots, imagine the outrage if someone said, hire me because I'm white. That wouldn't fly, and it shouldn't. Qualifications, not color. Merit, not identity. That's what made this country great. That's what should define public service. This speech was a perfect encapsulation of what's wrong with today's Democratic Party. Blame, division, identity politics, and a deep resentment of success. It wasn't a speech for unity or justice. It was a speech for outrage and retribution. But here's the good news. The American people are waking up. We're tired of being called racist, extremists, or terrorists just because we love this country, believe in free speech, and demand equal treatment under the law. So keep speaking up, keep pushing back, and keep putting freedom first.